And I think the thing that we've always subscribed to, and I think regardless of the vertical, it's a good thing to just keep in mind, right? And we would look at things that we would do and we would say, oh my God, like this particular job is amazing. This is great. And maybe we win awards for different things. And you savor the moment where you're like, okay, this is really cool. And then you start thinking, how do I do better than this? How do I one up this? And we've always just been driven so hard by that. And when someone says, oh my God, that's the best thing you've ever done, it's like a challenge, because what that means is I need to do something better now. Like if you think that that's the best thing that I've ever done, then anything we're doing today can't be good enough for tomorrow. And if you live with that mindset of always trying to be better every single day moving forward, then you start achieving really great results, I think. And for us, that's always been something good. And like you said, you win an award and you're like, okay, that's cool. And I'll post a truck wrap on Facebook and somebody will say, oh my God, that's my favorite. And when somebody says that about your work, again, you appreciate the compliment for what it is, but it's also a challenge.
This episode is brought to you by 10X Nerds. If you're a business owner doing real revenue, there's a good chance you're overpaying in areas you haven't even looked at. Things like credit card processing, insurance, telecom, and more. 10X Nerds comes in, audits your expenses across 30 plus categories, and finds immediate savings. And here's the kicker. They only get paid if they save you money. It's a complete no-brainer. If you want to keep more of what you make, go check them out at 10xnerds.com. This episode is brought to you by Rakowski Law Firm. If you're a business owner or have built a level of wealth, but you don't have your estate plan dialed in, you're exposed. Rakowski Law Firm helps families and business owners protect their assets, avoid probate, and make sure everything transfers exactly how it should. This isn't just paperwork. It's a real strategy to protect your legacy. If you haven't looked at your plan in a while or don't have one, go to rakowskilawfirm.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Big Hitters Podcast. Dan Antonelli, owner, founder of Kick Charge Creative, right? Kick Charge,
yep.
Kick Charge Creative. And the way I got on to Dan, first of all, plugging his book, Branded Not Blanded. Dan helps companies brand, and he is an expert in that space. I have seen that he is just revered amongst the home service guys. And I am just so pumped to pick his brain. Been doing this for over 30 years now. Dan, tell us, man, teach me your ways. I want to get in with the home service guys the way you have. And it's kind of crazy, man. I feel like every day I'm seeing somebody else post about their vans. Like, of course, your company helped them do it. And it's so powerful what you guys do.
Yeah, it's been a remarkable journey. I'm really, really blessed and so grateful to have taken this path. And I started so long ago. I mean, it's almost 41 years ago that I hand painted and hand lettered my first home service truck. And to be still doing that so many years later, and to be surrounded by, we have almost 75 employees right now, and it just blows my mind the level of work that we continue to put out every single day and the bars that we keep raising. And it's just been very cool to see the impact that our work has had on so many owners' lives and the lives of their employees. And I think that that's a great benchmark to live by, is measuring your success by the amount of impact that your work has had on people. And for that, like we literally have a wall wrap here in the office that says we build brands that change lives. And there's probably 200 photographs of companies that we've branded with the owners and their team in front of their vehicles. And it's just that visual reminder of how important our work is and how sacred that responsibility is that we have for these owners that trust us with their livelihoods. So really grateful to be here, and appreciate, the kind words that you said at the intro. And yeah, super happy.
Well, I mean, so I will go to the ends of the earth for the blue collar guy. I love the home services guys, and it makes 100% sense to me, the value of a good brand. And so over 30 years of doing this, tell me, like, and I'm assuming some of your, thoughts and what you've learned is in this most recent book you put out, but like tell us some of the things that you've learned about a powerful brand.
So, and part of why I wrote the book is, after doing this for so long, you obviously learn a few things along the way. And I thought there's so many things that get done wrong literally on day one when that owner decides I'm going out on my own. I'm going to start this company. And so I thought, man, if this could get in the hands of more people that were even considering starting a business, it's literally, I think, the most important book to ever read before you start a home service company. One of the biggest chapters in the book, you may have seen, was naming, right? And that's an area that so many companies get wrong literally on day one. And we had to rename probably 60 or 70 home service companies last year alone. And I don't love that we have to do that sometimes, but in order to really move the needle in a more dramatic fashion, sometimes you have to do that. And so, I just wanted to share as much as I possibly could. Not everyone will ever become, obviously, a kick charge client, but every owner deserves the opportunity to know as much as they possibly can on this topic. So no matter who they decide to work with, at least they'll have a better understanding of how branding works. And, I think the important things that I've really seen and witnessed firsthand over the years is just how brand affects the KPIs that you should be caring about most in your business. And if you're a numbers person and you're watching the numbers and you're looking at your marketing spend and you're looking at how much it's costing to acquire customers, how much, what our booking rate is, what our close rate is, and what our average tickets are, those are all the KPIs that are very dramatically affected by brand. And in as much as I love creating beautiful things and beautiful brands and brochures, websites, all those things that we do, I love the numbers behind those beautiful things and what they translate into. Because at the end of the day, like if it's beautiful but it doesn't move the needle, then what's the point, right? And so in the second edition of the book that you have in your hand there, I added an entire chapter where I dove deeper into the metrics that we've experienced and that we've seen time and time again on those KPIs. So what happened before the rebrand and what happened after the rebrand. And I think it's one of those things too, where people often look at the cost of rebranding and they say, oh my God, like this is and it is a substantial investment. No doubt about it. But I also look at it the opposite way and I say, well, how much is not having a good brand actually costing you? And it's that death by 1,000 cuts. It's the monthly spend to Google that you're overspending because no one knows you exist in the community. It's the poor close rates because Mrs. Jones doesn't think there's any reason why she should hire you over a competitor. It's those KPIs and those metrics that are really affected by brand. And so everything that we're trying to do is just control how that brand is perceived by that consumer and having her remember that particular brand name when she needs service.
This episode is brought to you by my friend Silas Lagoy over at ForgeMark Wealth. If you're a high-income business owner or professional and feel like you're getting crushed by taxes, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not stuck. ForgeMark Wealth specializes in advanced legal tax strategies and wealth planning designed to help you keep more of what you make, grow it efficiently, and actually build long-term freedom, not just income. If you're making serious money but don't have a real strategy behind it yet, I highly recommend connecting with Silas and his team. What's up, everybody? This episode is sponsored by ExitWise. If you're a business owner thinking about selling your company, whether that's now or years down the road, you need to know what your business is actually worth and how to maximize that exit. That's exactly what ExitWise does. They help you prepare, position, and ultimately sell your business by assembling a world-class team of M&A experts around you, guiding you from valuation all the way through closing. If you want to know what your business is really worth and how to increase that number before you sell, go check out exitwise.com and get ahead of it. Do you guys do traditional marketing like paid ads? Do you do other types? Okay, so you pretty much are an all-in-one marketing shop.
We have a full-service digital marketing team here that does email, social media, and they do, SEO, LSA, PPC, digital marketing. So, we see firsthand, especially those acquisition costs and those conversion rates on websites. And we see the effect of brands, especially for clients that we actually hadn't done their branding first and then do their branding and then see the impact that rebrand has on the digital marketing metrics. So really cool stuff to actually see firsthand about how those things are related to one another. And I think owners, I think, everyone hates how much it costs, how much they need to spend to Google every month. Every month they're getting whacked on their credit card for LSA and PPC costs. But part of the challenge is no one knows you exist in your
Yeah.
market. And when they don't know
Yeah.
you exist, it's just going to cost more to acquire that customer. So,
Yeah.
the idea of becoming 5 Mile famous, we talk a little bit about that in the book, and what are the ways to become 5 Mile famous, and just become top of mind to the people you're trying to sell to. And if you can
Yeah.
do that, then you will be less of a slave to Google. You will be less dependent on paid ads, and you'll see those other KPIs be affected in a positive way.
Yeah. I'm curious to know, you said something earlier about renaming a company. Are we talking like Smith and Sons Plumbing, or what's your just what do they come in just and the name is just too boring, or is it offensive, or like why do we rename a company?
There's an awful lot of reasons why you might rename a company. Last name brands historically are very challenging. So, if it was Hathaway Heating and Air, that's a conversation to have about maybe why that's not a great name to have for
Yeah.
a brand. If it was AH Heating and Air, that would be even worse.
What about
So,
Berkshire Hathaway Heating and Air?
yeah. So initial based brands, absolute worst things to ever name your company, like
Hmm.
TJS Heating and Air, TJS Mechanical, TJS Plumbing, like awful names, right? Anything with initials, really, really hard for people to ever remember, and worse, really hard to assign a promise to. Meaning,
Hmm.
if you're on an elevator, let's say, hey, nice to meet you. My name is Andrew. I'm from Hathaway Heating and Air. Okay, well, what does that mean? Like, what am I expecting to get if I hired you? Well, I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily expecting to get anything yet, because the name doesn't deliver an inferred brand promise, right? So names that don't deliver a brand promise, names that don't evoke obvious visuals, like obvious visuals also aid in making something more memorable, right? So you maybe never have seen, although you read the book, but if you had never seen the brand for Grasshopper Heating and Air, I bet you might have an idea of what that logo looks like because of
Yeah.
the name, right?
Yeah.
So anytime you have a name that evokes an obvious visual, it's much easier for the consumer to recall it later on, right? So
Hmm.
little things like that, certainly naming becomes something to have a conversation. And it doesn't mean you can't ever build a good brand with a last name brand as well. And certain times, in certain instances, that ship has already sailed and you can't change the name, and you should not change the name. So it's not a default answer. It's something that, you look at revenue, you look at how many years it's been in use, you look at how visible it currently is in the community, and then you make a determination as to whether or not that might make sense or not to change.
Inferred brand promise is an interesting principle. It sounds, I would like for you to unpack that for me a little bit. What does that mean?
So, I think, again, that benchmark. So if you were to think about a name that inferred something positive that I might get if I hired you, and I'm on my website now just looking through some names here, like a company that we renamed them Aced It. So if you said, I'm Andrew from Aced It Heating and Air, right away as the homeowner, I'm thinking, well, sounds like they know what they're doing. Like
Mm-hmm.
already, I think that there's something inferred that's positive about that experience
Got it.
if I was to hire them. Extra Mile is a company we named Extra Mile. It's XTRA and then Mile. So Extra Mile. Well, what does that mean for me as the consumer? Well, it means that we're going to go out of our way to make sure that this job is done right. We had a company that was called RW Garage Doors. My friend Jake, and I said, Jake, I can't get you to where you want to go with RW Garage Doors, but I can get you to where you want to go if we name it Right Way Garage Doors, because Right Way is a great brand promise not only to the people that you're selling to, but to your internal employees. Because at Right Way, we are going to do things the right way. We're not going to do it the easy way. We're going to do it the right way. And we came up with the tagline that lives above the logo that says, get it done the right way. So now as a consumer, I'm like, wow, I'm going to use these people because they're going to get it done the right way. Like that's
Yeah.
the brand promise that's inferred, but I couldn't get there with RW Garage Doors. What do I think I'm going to get? There's no
Yeah.
inferred promise there. So
Yeah. It's really interesting as I've gotten. I think I became friends with you, like Victor, Jonas Olson in the pest control space, and now I'm just literally suggested people left and right in home services. So plumbing, HVAC, electrical, roofing, landscaping. Is this just like, are those all your people? Like, how did you get such a lock on this space?
I think it was probably 15 years ago, or maybe a little bit longer, that we started doing more work in the HVAC space. And we became really well known for doing more branding that was done in a nostalgia fashion. So more retro based branding. And we won a few awards. We got featured in some magazines, some home service magazines. And then it started growing from there. And at that point, we were in many different verticals. Like we had a lot of healthcare, believe it or not. We did healthcare marketing. We did insurance work, believe it or not, work for insurance agencies. So we were like doing many different things. We were just more traditional agency. Like didn't matter the vertical, we would work with anyone. And then we just really started thinking about what are the things that we love most about working with the trades. And for me, certainly my background in working on vehicles themselves, like me physically installing truck wraps and physically lettering trucks. And I knew that I was super passionate about that part of it, and we were really good at it at that point. And wraps weren't even really well, it wasn't something that every contractor was doing. There's still a million more white vans then than there is certainly now, right? So
Yeah.
we just said, hey, you know what? Like this is where we want to go hard on. This is what we're passionate about. And I think the other part too for us is when we were doing work for larger corporate companies, doing work for insurance companies and companies like that, you couldn't measure that impact, so they signed up a few more people for health insurance. Well, whose lives did I change in that particular process, right? So a lot of the people that are here came from big ad agencies, and what they didn't like about working for a big ad agency is there was no way to measure the impact that they were having on people's lives. And now we get to do branding, and we see firsthand how it affects the owners, his families, his employees, all these other things. And that's how we just became just so focused on we're going to be the best branding agency and marketing agency in the trades, period. And we just went hard on that. And I think the other thing too is like when you think about our work, and I think the thing that we've always subscribed to, and I think regardless of the vertical, it's a good thing to just keep in mind, right? And we would look at things that we would do, and we would say, oh my God, like this particular job is amazing, this is great. And maybe we win awards for different things, and you savor the moment where you're like, okay, this is really cool. And then you start thinking, how do I do better than this? How do I one up this? And we've always just been driven so hard by that. And when someone says, oh my God, that's the best thing you've ever done, it's like a challenge, because what that means is I need to do something better now. Like if you think that that's the best thing that I've ever done, then anything we're doing today can't be good enough for tomorrow. And if you live with that mindset of always trying to be better every single day moving forward, then you start achieving really great results, I think. And for us, that's always been something good. And like you said, you win an award and you're like, okay, that's cool. And people, I'll post a truck wrap on Facebook, and somebody will say, oh my God, that's my favorite. And when somebody says that about your work, again, you appreciate the compliment for what it is, but it's also a challenge, right?
Mm.
Because if you want to sit there and rest on that and you want to say, well, that's the best, then as soon as you think that that's the best that you can do, then everything after is downhill. And that's just really the psychology that we have. Like we preach every day here. Nothing we're doing today should ever be considered to be good enough for tomorrow.
Mm. That's a good word. I like that. And I had a thought, and of course, the future of branding. I'm kind of curious. Have you noticed? I mean, I'm sure there's been some trends and some shifts in like the types of brands or the ways you brand, like the logos and things like that. What has been the evolution, and where do you think it's going?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I mean, obviously, everyone is talking about AI and the impact on branding, impact on everything, as far as even that's concerned. And for us, I think we're always just thinking about the role that branding is supposed to play in any business, and that's being authentic. And so when you look at some of the stuff that people are using and are like, oh yeah, I can just get my logo on chat, and some of it is just so painfully obvious that it's from chat. And I think, people are going to start really experiencing a lot of the anti-AI backlash that people are already seeing
Hmm.
as it relates to using chat, whether it's in written communications, whether it's in graphics that they're spitting out. And as soon as people see it, they know right away that it wasn't designed, that it wasn't authentic, that it wasn't behind a human. And I think that, it's going to be there. Listen, there will always be people who think that that type of work is sufficient for their business. And it's almost no different than the people who thought clip art was good enough for their branding, or they thought Fiverr was good enough for their branding. So they're not typically, those people were never our clients to begin with. But I think as far as trends that you see, you do see a lot of mascot branding, more so probably than you did years ago. But I will
Yeah.
say that a lot of the mascot branding that you see is having the opposite effect of what a good mascot brand should do. So a
Hmm.
lot of the stuff that you see, especially from like budget branding companies or online branding companies, is very amateur in its presentation. And so when you look at that and you look at how it's presented, it does the opposite of what that brand should be doing. Like, so you lose the sense of professionalism because the work is subpar and it's communicated in the visuals. So we certainly believe mascots will continue to play a role in home service branding, but I think again the time and crafts the time and that we spend in crafting these brands and what we do to communicate a lot of the emotive characteristics of mascots and the subliminal effect of mascots. Those are things that are very, I mean, I've never really seen AI get correctly, and I very rarely see, some of these really like low cost branding companies get do it correctly, I should say. And I think that that's something that just everyone needs to be mindful of, because it's not just putting any mascot, it's the thought behind why that mascot is there and whether or not that mascot even makes sense. And the other thing too is, talking about mascots, is not every market should have a mascot, and not every market will have a mascot perform well. And you need to understand why and when you don't want to go in that direction.
I'm curious to know your thoughts on AI visibility. I mean, and I don't know if this is. Can I pick your brain on this
Yeah, of course.
on the show? Okay, so I think any contractor, home service guy that is thinking about how to be seen and how to show up needs to be thinking about getting found on large language models. And I'm surprised at how few people I talk to are actually pondering this. What are your thoughts on that? On the way search is going and where the consumer is finding the home service companies.
Yeah, I mean, it's right now it still represents such a small portion of actual search, but as we've seen in so many disruptive industries, how quickly it can become adopted. So you always want to be thinking about what's happening down the road and start preparing. But I think the most critical thing too is first of all just being cognitive of the fact that using AI to dump 100 or 200 or 1,000 pages on your website automatically and thinking that that's going to be a well-conceived digital marketing strategy to account for AI search is not a really smart idea, right? We know right now, of course, that that doesn't work for organic SEO, like regular SEO. So why would we think that doing that strategy would be effective for for AI, right? So I think we look at AI certainly from a digital marketing perspective as something that first of all is human led. Okay. And then you can use AI to help with some of the task centric things that you need, but nothing ever gets done without a human at the end. So in the middle, having AI assist is okay. But what gets published and what you put out there still has to be driven by human. And the content as well still needs to be crafted in a manner that is authentic to that particular brand and that speaks to what AI is looking for to determine relevancy. And a lot of people just think there's a magic button to press and AI is going to generate all these pages and then suddenly now we're going to be found on AI search. And that's not a stance that we truly believe in. And I think also if you start going down that path, and it's going to be pretty obvious to AI itself when you're trying to game the AI system. Like, you want to say how smart AI is. You don't think AI is going to be able to figure out when it's being gamed, right? So thinking about the normal things that you should be doing, like GMB updates, right? Making sure you're posting there, making sure your reviews are up there, keeping that content fresh, posting on social. All those things are still going to play a role in AI search.
Okay, what's one thing? This is fascinating, and I just look up to you, and I want to be like you one day. What's one thing we haven't talked about that gets you fired up? Something that we haven't discussed, either in or outside of your area of expertise. It could be unrelated to business at all.
Well, I mean, I think one thing to think about that owners underestimate as it relates to branding specifically is what is the effect that brand has on mindset for an owner,
Hmm.
right? What does it actually do to an owner who now suddenly has a brand that truly represents what they actually deliver on a daily basis? And then how does it affect other things that maybe don't actually show up in a spreadsheet? Like, how does it affect culture? How does it affect recruitment? And I think that that part of branding is not spoken about enough. It's all about, hey, I want to get a new brand because I want to have a better truck. I want to have a better website. I want to have better marketing materials. No one comes to us and says, Dan, we want to rebrand because I want to change my mindset, right? But that's what happens, right? Because they're so excited about this brand. And not only that, then the employees get energized about the brand. The employees want to be part of something that you're building. They see that you're investing back into this company. And so those are all things that I think are underestimated in terms of the effect and the power of branding, but I think is super important. And you just see it, like you could see firsthand how re-engaged the owners get. And I always say that branding is typically this amazing catalyst for change for any organization. And they always look at that as the point in which everything changed. That's
Hmm.
the single point. And after doing thousands of brands, I mean, it's consistent across the board. This is the inflection point.
Hmm.
Once we did this, everything changed. Right. And I
Hmm.
think that people don't understand that. And again, too, I would say to a certain extent, I can understand why some owners don't understand that, because unless you've experienced it and gone through that process, you don't really know what a brand can do for you. Like, honestly,
Yep.
like, how would you even know? I mean, obviously you could talk to people that have done it, and you could see, the companies we've done it, Tommy Mello, Gettle, like big companies that invested in branding and what they built. But if you haven't done it yourself, I can see why. Oh yeah, well, it's just a logo. Like, and if you think that this is just a logo, then you're totally missing the point of branding, right? And I think
You know what, Dan? It's so interesting to me because this is literally the argument I'm having with my partner right now. Actually, you know what? Would you mind settling a debate on air? Can I get the multi-million-dollar brand guy to settle this debate for me and my
sure,
partner? Okay, so we have a virtual assistant staffing company, and my target audience is the home service people. And it's very bland. It's
hmm
just called Virtual Assist. And for a while, I have been believing you need a badass executive assistant. That is
hmm
what every blue collar guy needs, not some person in the Philippines that does $45 an hour work. You need someone who thinks ahead for you, who kicks ass for you, who puts out fires for you. And I've had this thought of calling it badass executive assistants.
yeah.
And the blue collar guys love that. And she's fighting me on it. And I need your feedback. Am I moving in the wrong direction?
No, I think again, you build a brand for who you're trying to attract and who you're trying to sell to. The first screen that you had up there, what I would say it was functional, but it was unremarkable. So
Hmm.
it looks like something I've seen before. There isn't anything about it that excites me terribly. Like I say, okay, well, they look legit, I guess, but I'm not terribly excited about it. But if I'm an owner, yeah, I would love to have a badass assistant like help me with
Boom.
with stuff. I would love to have somebody that makes my life easier. And calling it this, yeah, you could say, well, it feels a little radical to call it that, or it feels disruptive. But it's I kind of think about my buddy Dave from Dope Marketing. It's called Dope Marketing, and you're like, well, why is it called Dope Marketing? I'm like, well, it actually stands for something, and Dave's going to be mad at me because I don't remember exactly what it stands for, but it's disruptive, right? It's something that I would remember. I'm not going to forget that name. And badass virtual assistants, I think, speaks to who you're trying to sell to.
Thank you. That was a new segment presented by Kick Charge Creative. Thank you. Anything else that we haven't talked about today that gets you fired up?
Um, I think again, like I mentioned earlier, when you're frustrated with how much money you're spending every month on your digital marketing and how much it's costing you to acquire a lead, I want you to think about what are the things that you can be doing as a contractor to become 5 Mile famous in the community that you're serving. Because if
Hmm.
you can develop a brand that people remember, that lives in their mind so that it can be recalled later on, then you're going to be so much less dependent on Google for customer acquisition. If people just go on and they type in air conditioning repair near me, now you're like everyone else. But if they go in there and they remember that name, it was badass HVAC, right? And they just type that in. Well, how much cheaper do you think it's going to be for you to get that lead if they know the name of
That's
your
good.
company
That's
ahead of
such a
that call?
good word. That is such a good word.
So
Yes.
just keep
Amen.
that in mind. Every couple of days your credit card's getting whacked on Google, and it's frustrating, and I know it sucks to see that happening. But a lot of that is just because you have an unremarkable brand. I'm not here to tell you that you're going to build this brand and you will never need to spend a dime on digital marketing. Like that's not what I'm here to tell you. But I think when you think about how much it's costing you, and we have case studies in the book that you could read and you could see what the effect was on acquisition cost. You could see what the effect was on average tickets and booking rates and close rates and conversion rates. Like it's kind of a no brainer. But if you don't do this, again, it's just that, death by a thousand cuts. You're just going to keep spending and keep spending and keep spending and never actually solve the fundamental flaw in your marketing strategy, which is going to be the brand.
You are a legend and a scholar, and I am so thankful that you decided to come on the podcast and join us. Where can people go if they want to learn more?
Sure, they could just go to kickcharge.com and shoot us a message, and we'll be happy to talk to you. If you have, people listening that have a brand that want some input, or just want me to take a quick look, you could always hit me up at dan@kickcharge.com, or you could shoot me a message on Facebook, and I'm always happy to take a look. I'm not a hard sell kind of guy. But if I can give you some advice on maybe the next time you get your truck wrapped or you're going to tweak the logo, hey, just change this. Like sometimes it's just a matter of that. Like, hey, delete these things off the truck, move this here and make this part bigger and it'll be like that much more impactful. Like I'm happy to give that advice, and if I could give back to the trades in that way, that I'm honored to be able to do that.
I love that. Well, Dan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Don't go anywhere because I want to keep talking, but thanks for coming on the show.
All right. Thanks, brother.